I have people, because I still go to church. I don't go to church as much as I used to, but I have people on my page that are in the church, and they'll come to me and they're, like, I know they're viewing all my stuff. They're, purchasing my photos and video. And then they'll be on my Facebook page and they'll be like, what you're doing is wrong. You're going to hell for that. And I just think to myself, like, you're literally telling me I'm going to hell for something, and you're paying a subscription to my OnlyFans page. So.
Hey friends, I'm delighted to be joined by Crystal DiGregorio, and we're going to be talking about porn. We're going to be talking about the church and other things. We're going to be talking about mostly her story. So thank you, Crystal, for joining me.
Yeah, no problem.
So your story was making the rounds on the internet a few years ago. I saw your thing on the 700 Club, and there were other organizations, and you were, the headline was kind of like, from porn star to pastor. So I'm curious, did you have a religious upbringing?
No, not at all, actually. I only went to church a couple times when I was little, and that was for my own curiosity. My mother or dad at the time never brought me to church.
And how did you first enter the porn industry, the adult industry?
I was about, I would say 19 years old when I got in. And it was basically when I went out to California. I didn't have any intention of getting into the adult industry when I went out there, but I moved out there with my son, and it was just, I was out there for a couple months, and the rent and everything was just crazy. I went out there for like acting, mainstream acting. And once I realized how crazy it was, I was bartending. I was working another job too as a secretary, and I just wasn't making it. And this guy, agent from the porn industry, was like, you can make $30,000 in a month. So I figured, I'll do it for a month and I'll just be done with it. Nobody ever find out about it. So that's kind of my break-in of it.
Does that happen often, where someone says, I'll do it just for this time, and then get out, and they end up staying longer, maybe their whole, or a lot of years, like decades? Does that happen often?
Yeah, I think it happens a lot. I mean, you got to figure, when you start making more money like that, you start spending more money like that, your bills become higher. So it's like, you have to keep doing this to make sure that your bills get paid. So, it's like one of those things where you get stuck into that industry. And that was kind of my life. I had to actually file bankruptcy to get out of the porn industry, just to walk away from it all.
And walking away from it, what kind of resistance did you have, or did you have any, from the porn industry?
No, I can't say that I had much. I mean, I wasn't contacted very often by people. I maintained a few friendships throughout the whole time, but other than that, like, I didn't get a whole lot of backlash from it.
Okay. And maybe let's go to your journey in finding God. How did that come about? Can you unpack that a bit?
I was in a horrible relationship, and I decided that, like, I was trying everything I could to get away from it. And my sister one day, she's like, it was on Easter Sunday actually, and she goes, well, why don't you come to church? And I was like, all right, whatever. I think I had like jeans, Ugg boots on, and like some like nasty shirt. It was nothing. I didn't dress up for church and go into church that day. And it was that day, it's like the pastor, he was the assistant pastor at the time, and he was just preaching like directly to me. And that was when I went, up to the altar call, and just like fell on my knees and just prayed out to God, just to get me away from the relationship that I was in. And I'll never forget that day. That day I walked out of that church, and I didn't even have a feeling to go back to this guy ever again. It was like something like only God can you break that chain that I was in.
So I hear the story coming out that you were denouncing porn. When did you first start seeing porn as harmful in your career?
It was, I can't say there was too much of it. It was after I found God that, I started seeing little things here and there. People emailing me, like wives or even husbands emailing me and, like telling me how their whole relationship failed because they were watching my videos and stuff. Like it became like an obsession with certain people. So that was where I saw the harmfulness of it.
Okay. And there obviously is a normalization of porn stars today of they're just doing what they're enjoying, or there's freedom of expression. But as someone well acquainted with the porn world, do you get the sense that adult stars generally like what they're doing?
No, I know a lot of adult stars that hated every minute of what they were doing. It became so, the intimacy of it became so numbing that, it's just a business, it's just about getting a paycheck every week. It wasn't something where, you go into it and be like, yeah, this is fun. This is the greatest thing ever, when you're, having sex with random strangers, people that you don't even want to sleep with.
Yeah. And I hear stories of adult actors who leave porn and they kind of denounce porn. A certain name comes to mind, of Nadia Stiles, who I think she was baptized by Rick Warren. I was pretty young, and I watched a YouTube video. She was baptized and she denounced it. And then I'm pretty sure she continued after that. So how hard is it to kind of leave the world of porn for good, do you think?
The money aspect of it, that's where it's like you have to be completely comfortable or completely walk away from the whole thing to get away from the porn industry. And there's a lot of backlash when it comes to the mainstream world. I went to school and became a paralegal, and there were so many jobs that I went to go get, and people would be like, well, your history is going to be an issue with our clients. And this, it was just like, it was very hard for me to become what they call normal again. Yes. Because of my past. So I finally actually got a job with when I got fired from a job just because of my past, and at one time. And from that point forward, I would email an employer and be like, hey, just so you know, if you Google me, I'm Nadia Hilton, like I've got a whole porn past and this is who I am. That way it puts it out there in the beginning, so there's no secrets, nothing's hidden, and I wouldn't have to worry about losing a job. And there was a lot of the people that were open up to it, and they're like, hey, it's fine. What you do outside of work is your business. So.
Okay. So you're saying it wasn't like every job, it was just a few jobs where it was hard. Okay. Because I wanted to ask about that. Like, there's this vicious cycle where, the church kind of tells you you should leave that life. And then society sometimes is like, we can't hire you here because of that. So it sounds like it's a vicious cycle. And yet you're saying there's some grace.
Yeah, I mean, there's bad things and good things that come from it. I would say that if there's anybody that's looking to get into the porn industry, what you're going to do afterwards is something you do need to keep in your mind for the future. Because, like, I have this friend and she's just starting up her OnlyFans page, and she wants to be a cop. But there's no way she's going to ever become a cop because of her, because she's, now doing porn on the internet. Yeah. So, it's like you really have to think about those things. And they are things that I didn't think about when I got into the porn industry. I didn't think about any of those things.
Yeah. And I understand you have an OnlyFans account. You want to speak into that a bit? Like, has your view of porn changed from what it was 5, 6, 7 years ago right now?
Oh, absolutely. My whole view of it has changed. I mean, for lots of reasons. Me being in church, leaving the whole church part and pastoring and all that. I had a really horrible experience as a pastor. It was horrific. I can't imagine the things that pastors go through. Like I've applaud them for the things that they deal with, because like I was getting attacked every single day of my life. It was terrible. I ended up going through a divorce, a horrible divorce. And because of my past as a porn star, everybody thought I was the one who cheated and did all these bad things. And I was like, okay, whatever. Cause my ex had, he grew up in the church. So, he's got to be the saint and I must be the absolute sinner. Wow. So it was, I remember sitting in church after I went through a divorce, and like there was 3 rows of pews, and I'm sitting in the front pew, and literally every week I would sit in the same spot. I started noticing people like literally casting me away, that it was all empty all the way around me. And I was like, this is nice. Like, this is how people treat other people. So eventually, like, I don't really want to get into it too much, but truth came out and people were apologizing to me, but damage was already done by then.
Sure. Wow. And do you think you were saying that you were having such a hard time as a pastor? I'm curious your thoughts on when someone comes to you as a Christian and says you can't be a pastor because you're a woman. What's your general response to that?
Oh my gosh, I got that all the time. But what I would do is I think about a lot of things, like how who was it? Was it Phoebe that Paul used to deliver the letters and stuff? There's so many things in the Bible where women were elevated. And then I would bring up those scriptures to them and, ask what they think about this. And I would also, point out the fact that God anoints so many people that, you look at a lot of women pastors that are, preaching to millions of people. Like, they're doing something good, so it shouldn't be judged. And imagine if the Bible was written now instead of back then, how women have rights and everything now, and they didn't have rights back then. I think about that a lot too.
Okay.
And I bring that up.
And I want to talk about porn stars who leave porn or try to leave porn, and they go to the church. How equipped are our evangelical churches to handle that?
I don't think that they are very well equipped at all. I mean, I've had a lot of bad experiences in church. And I think when you have somebody that comes in who leaves the porn industry and comes into church, and everybody, when they first get there, they're opening their arms and they're like, yeah, welcome, come in. And then they don't really want them hanging out with their friends or their family because of their past. So it's like this double-edged sword here, where you're being judged for your past, but also, everybody wants you to be saved at the same time. But, it's a terrible cycle that I don't think people really know how to handle and to deal with.
Yeah. And I hear you saying that there's this kind of superficial acceptance or pretend acceptance. Like you're accepted, just kind of, you're not really allowed with friends or family or perhaps kids. I don't know. Wow.
Yeah, you're judged for your past completely.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, I don't know what to do when it comes to the church, because sometimes we'll be preaching against pornography, and yet a lot of pastors will be viewing pornography as well. So it's like, what do you do? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, all I can say is, like my OnlyFans account, I have people, because I still go to church. I don't go to church as much as I used to, but I have people on my page that are in the church, and they'll come to me and they're, like, I know they're viewing all my stuff. They're, purchasing my photos and video. And then they'll be on my Facebook page and they'll be like, what you're doing is wrong. You're going to hell for that. And I just think to myself, like, you're literally telling me I'm going to hell for something, and you're paying a subscription to my OnlyFans page. So it makes no sense. Like, it's insane to me.
That is bizarre. Holy cow. Okay. Yeah. And I remember, I've heard this growing up from a lot of American churches, how, pornography used to be like, I'm going to go get a Playboy magazine, but now it's like, I can view it on my cell phone. And then it's so much easier now to preach against it when you're just viewing it so privately. You don't even have to go to a store to get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can just, pull it right up on your cell phone, and it's like, unless somebody's holding that person accountable, or that person's never going to use a cell phone or watch TV or anything, it's almost impossible not to have that stuff thrown up in your face.
Sure. And I'm curious about your own thoughts on when it comes to talking to our kids about pornography and sex. What are your own thoughts? Because we live in a very technological advanced age where our kids and our teenagers, they have phones and they're going to be exposed. So how did you approach that with your own, I believe you only have a son, right?
No, I actually have, I have 3 boys and a daughter now.
Okay.
'Cause I'm remarried now, so.
Yes. Yeah.
My view on that, like, I don't think anybody should be having sex until they're of age to have sex. And, like one of the big things is people ask me, would you want your daughter in porn? And my first thing is absolutely not. Wouldn't want her in porn. If I never started the porn and into the porn industry, I wouldn't be where I am now. I definitely, if I had a different option, I probably would have taken something else, but it's kind of my life that I'm in now. With kids, I would teach them all the negative things of the porn industry. And, I think that there are some positive things that come from it. There's a lot to learn, and fantasies get fulfilled that normally wouldn't get fulfilled, the more you explore life and intimacy. And I would definitely, like I said, preach against it until they're of age and want to learn and know more about it.
And what age would you say you would be comfortable with your kids, viewing pornography or children in
40.
Oh, wow.
Now like my son is 20 years old right now. So, it's like he's now knowing that world, even though I think I told him I was in the industry when he was 13 or 14 is when it kind of came out. I mean, back then was when he, like a lot of people know me where I live. And, there were kids that would pick on him and then also be like, wanted to come over to his house and hang out with him just because of who I am. So it's, a little different when you're, you have a mother or father in the porn industry than not.
And I wanted to ask about sexual abuse within the porn industry, because I was viewing some of your earlier interviews, from Porn to Pastor. Some of those interviews, I don't know which one right now, but you seem to be saying that there's a lot of sexual abuse. So how prevalent is sexual abuse in the porn industry?
Going into the porn industry, I think that a lot of, and all I can speak for is like women is, you get abused when you're younger. And I think that all plays into, something in your mind. I went through a lot of therapy to learn that I have what they call, daddy issues. So, it's definitely one of those major things, when you go into the porn industry, it's because you're looking for attention or you're looking for something to fill that hole that you're missing, that came missing when you were a child.
Okay. And why do you think it is that adult stars defend the porn industry so much? Is it because, their paycheck depends on it and they have an image to protect? Is that like the main reason? Or do you think some actually buy into it? Like this is good stuff.
I think it goes both ways. I think a paycheck has a lot to do with the adult industry. If you took the money aspect out of the porn industry, there wouldn't be a whole lot of porn going on. Mm-hmm. So, but there are people that enjoy doing it, but there and there is like women that go into, and they could be men too, but women that go into the porn industry and they're basically abusing their bodies and doing things that they don't want to do just for money. That was where I was at.
And many in society in general are asking questions of like, what's so bad about porn? And is that where you're at too? Or are you saying it's bad and like there's pros and cons to it? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it. Like me, I only shoot with my husband. I don't shoot with anybody else. I'm not contracted by an agent. I don't have to worry. Like I run my own life and I do things that I want to do. Not, hey, Nadia, you gotta, go do this boy girl scene with this name. And then I Google the name and look this guy up on Facebook to find out what they look like, that I'm supposed to be going to tomorrow to shoot with. It's such a different world when you're in control of your own body and your own mind.
And we touched on this, but can you speak into some common misconceptions in society and in the church that people have about pornography, from your perspective? What are some like most common misconceptions?
I think the most common one is thinking that just because you're in porn that you're gonna be out in the real world, like sleeping with hundreds of people. My life has been, people think like, oh yeah, she slept with, 40 people when she was in high school. I'm like, no, I didn't. I had a boyfriend all throughout high school, which was my son's father. Like I was not, a promiscuous girl before I got into the porn industry. So that is a very big misconception, is that, porn stars sleep around with everybody. And, and even when they're in the industry, people are thinking that, they're outside of porn, sleeping with everybody, or they think like, oh, she's going to sleep with my husband. It's like, oh, it's not really how it works. In fact,
Sure.
You become so numb to the whole sex part of it that it's a job when you're full on into the porn industry. So you don't even want to have sex outside the industry half the time. And then the other misconception, I think, is that that everybody's on drugs or they're alcoholics or something like that. And it's, for me, it's like I would take hydrocodone pills right before a scene, but that was because I had pain, like, with intercourse. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, she looks like she's a girl that, pops pills, but not really. I wasn't popping pills. I would do one pill right before a scene, and the rest of the day, and I was fine. I wasn't out, bar hopping and doing all that crazy stuff or doing any other drugs or anything. So, there's definitely misconceptions there.
And you touched on being hurt by the church. And I'm just wondering, what do you think when people see like these conflicting stories and these conflicting headlines about you, or it doesn't bother you at this point?
What I want to do, like my whole point about having, my new story that's coming out is if you want people to be in church, stop judging them and pointing fingers at them and, trying to force them into a religion. You have to allow them to change on their own. And if they fall and, something happens where, they go through a divorce, or, they were addicted to drugs beforehand and then they went back to drugs, or, ends up doing something like, which is bad in that person's eyes, stop judging them for it and try to help them through it instead of pushing them away and acting like they got a disease.
So more grace and less coercion.
Yeah. Yep.
Before we go, I want to ask you about your name. So your porn name is Nadia Hilton. What does this name? What does this name mean to you? And how do you feel using the name again after giving it up when you left porn initially?
Well, my, it's like alter ego of Nadia is somebody who has like the sexual side of her, but like right now I see myself in the middle. Like I'm not 100% into church or 100% into porn. It's like I'm in the middle and, living my own life and in control of my own life now, where before I don't feel like I was. And, Nadia was never a terribly bad thing to me. It was, somebody who it is who I am. It's a part of me that is my past and who will always be a part of me.
Got it. Thank you, Crystal, for your time. And I'm looking forward to your story coming out and hearing more about it.
Great. Thank you so much.